Can you bear seeing your wife like this? You've probably heard of the 7-year itch. This term always carries a certain subtle flavor, like ripples spreading across a calm lake. In this Korean film, the protagonist Do-hyeon is experiencing exactly this. Let's dive into the story and see if it stirs up any deep-seated memories for you. The story begins in a Japanese restaurant. The beautiful heroine, Jeong-in, is about to enjoy a delicious meal. Her pleasant mood is interrupted by a phone call.
답장을 해 바로 이거.
전화비 많이 나면 나 끊자.
너 말 많이 하면 안 되니까 전화하지 마, 엄마. 응, 알았어.
After hanging up, she accidentally spots a balloon drifting outside the window. Then, the sound of breaking dishes fills the air, and the phone on the table gets knocked to the floor. The record player emits a strange noise. The sudden shaking scares Jeong-in, and she dives under the table. Meanwhile, a handsome young man, Do-hyeon, is recording the changes in the building across the street due to the ground shaking. Just as he turns around, he notices something flash past his camera lens. Before he can figure out what's going on, he sees Jeong-in running around in a panic and then crashing into him. Do-hyeon immediately recognizes her as a fellow Korean and confirms his suspicion by asking her. At that moment, the ground shakes again, and Jeong-in quickly squats down in fear. Do-hyeon crouches down to comfort her, then hops on his beloved scooter and takes Jeong-in to a safe place. As they talk, it turns out Do-hyeon is also a Korean studying in Japan, while Jeong-in is there to learn about cooking. Despite being fellow countrymen, there are no tears in their eyes as they meet. Jeong-in picks up a teacup to drink some water but suddenly cries out and huddles under the table again. Do-hyeon kneels down and tells her that there is no earthquake, it's just the vibration of the phone. Looking at Jeong-in slowly lifting her head, Do-hyeon, captivated by her beauty, made a remark that caught her attention.
제가 밥 사줄게요. 이런 미인을 만나서 정말 영광입니다.
Jeong-in, after a careful look, agreed, and thus, their official dating began. They went on dates by the river, on the Ferris wheel, in arcades, on the streets, in elevators, parks, and even during meals at restaurants. After a year of dating, they finally walked down the aisle. Fast forward to 7 years later, one morning, a man delivering newspapers on his bike arrives at a courtyard, sees a big sign, and casually tosses the newspaper inside. Just as he is about to leave, Jeong-in picks up the newspaper and confronts him, pointing out the sign that says no newspapers allowed. The man claims he didn't see it, leading to a heated argument. Do-hyeon steps out and, embarrassed by Jeong-in's behavior, impatiently calls her back inside. Jeong-in busies herself with morning chores, and Do-hyeon, watching her scratch her but while cooking, can only sigh. Even when Do-hyeon was on the toilet, she walked in with 2 glasses of juice, insisting that Do-hyeon drink them right then and there. She even smokes and mops the floor while he eats. Heading to work, Do-hyeon has to listen to Jeong-in's nagging on the phone. During a company meeting, the boss mentions an important business trip. Do-hyeon immediately volunteered, but the opportunity was snatched away by a colleague. Desperate to escape Jeong-in's nagging, Do-hyeon kneels and begs his boss, passionately pleading his case. Finally, he gets the boss's approval and excitedly invites Jeong-in out for a meal. Do-hyeon tells Jeong-in about his month-long trip, pretending to be reluctant to leave. Back home, Jeong-in demands they do a double cleanse to detox Do-hyeon before his trip. The next day, as Do-hyeon drives away, he can barely contain his joy. At his destination, Do-hyeon meets up with an old childhood friend, and they drink and talk about life. After their get-together, Do-hyeon returns to his place, only to find a pair of high heels at the door. Nervously, he walks inside and sees Jeong-in busy in the kitchen, leaving him stunned. Jeong-in has prepared a feast for him. During the meal, she resumes her chatter, and when Do-hyeon tries to escape to the bathroom, she follows him. The look on his face reveals his desperation. The next day, at work, Do-hyeon hears his boss announce a celebration dinner for the successful project, with everyone required to bring their spouse. Do-hyeon lies, saying his wife is sick, but the boss insists on calling to check on her. Realizing he can't avoid it, Do-hyeon reluctantly agrees. Back home, he tries everything to prevent Jeong-in from attending the party, even breaking plates and spilling detergent on the floor. Indeed, Jeong-in fell.
앞접시가 어딨어?
At the party, Do-hyeon was explaining things when the sound of high heels caught the men's attention. Suddenly, Jeong-in arrived and became the star of the show. sparking jealousy among the other women. They subtly and openly claimed they were more sophisticated than her. Jeong-in's fiery temper flared up, and she shot back at them. However, she accidentally knocked over the tablecloth and had to leave early. On the way home, Jeong-in saw someone on the rooftop. Ready to jump, she quickly took out her phone, snapped a photo, and called the police. Both she and the would-be jumper ended up at the police station. When Do-hyeon heard, he rushed over. As they were about to leave, a police officer stopped him and said the guy was Seung-gi, a notorious playboy known for seducing married women. He warned Do-hyeon to keep an eye on his wife. This well-intended advice acted as a catalyst for the unfolding drama. Do-hyeon arranged to meet Jeong-in for coffee, but he was distracted, looking for something. Sensing his unease, Jeong-in asked what was wrong. Flustered, Do-hyeon said he was going to order. When he returned, he saw Jeong-in and Seung-gi chatting and laughing together. All he could do was stare. The next day, Jeong-in saw Seung-gi throwing away some dishes. She asked why he was discarding them, as they seemed fine. Seung-gi said they were just trash to him and was about to throw them away, but then placed them on the doorpost. Looking heartbroken, worried he might do something rash, Jeong-in invited him over for tea. During their chat, Seung-gi complimented Jeong-in, saying she was very sexy, especially her ankles. This simple interaction made Jeong-in feel a slight attraction towards Seung-gi, and she found herself thinking about his compliments and admiring her long legs that night. Do-hyeon helped Jeong-in get a job through a friend. Surprisingly, the job was perfect for her, and her chatterbox nature revitalized a radio show that had been struggling with low ratings. To celebrate, her colleagues invited her out for barbecue. At that moment, Seung-gi appeared, offering to give Jeong-in a ride home since he was going the same way. In the car, they chatted happily.
젖자 드릴까요?
And Seung-gi suddenly said something that startled Jeong-in. They arrived at a farm, where Seung-gi revealed they were there to milk cows. He boasted about his skill in finger ballet and began to demonstrate, leaving Jeong-in mesmerized. She imagined how the cows must feel and couldn't help but comment on it. Seung-gi then invited her to experience the joy of milking, guiding her hands-on through the process.
저는 그냥 본능에 충실할 뿐이죠. 내가 그런 인간이라는 거지.
After experiencing the joy, Jeong-in and Seung-gi went to a sheep farm, where they had a lot of fun, even getting the sheep to bleat in delight. After several encounters, Jeong-in began secretly taking calls from Seung-gi behind Do-hyeon's back. Do-hyeon seemed to sense something. They stood on their respective rooftops, using remote-controlled airplanes to share their happiness. This joy boosted Jeong-in's confidence at work, making her even more successful. Seung-gi invited Jeong-in out again, seeing their relationship. I wanted to give them a lighter. They went to a park and played on the carousel together.
죽어도 좋아.
Unbeknownst to them, Do-hyeon was secretly following and saw everything. Back home, Do-hyeon found Jeong-in happily using her computer. Curious, he wanted to see what she was doing, but Jeong-in stopped him, maybe because she was in a good mood. Jeong-in turned on some music. Seeing Jeong-in's graceful figure, Do-hyeon couldn't resist joining her in dancing.
이게 뭘 보고 있어요?
Suddenly, Jeong-in hugged Do-hyeon and turned off the music, reminiscing about their first meeting. She asked Do-hyeon to kiss her. As they kissed, Do-hyeon's hands started to wander, and just as things were heating up, the phone rang. Jeong-in quickly got up to answer it. Before leaving, she playfully pinched Do-hyeon. A colleague invited Jeong-in and Do-hyeon to dinner, announcing that Jeong-in's work had been recognized by the company, and she was being transferred to Seoul. On the way back, the couple discussed the news, which led to an argument. An angry Jeong-in took a taxi and left. In no time, Jeong-in and Seung-gi were at a bar. Seung-gi took the drunken Jeong-in home, but they didn't do what you might think. Jeong-in managed to maintain her integrity, but before she left, Seung-gi confessed his feelings, saying, "I like you." Jeong-in and her colleagues received an interview invitation. When they arrived, they marveled at the size and unique decor of the place. As Jeong-in prepared for the interview with the mysterious person, she was shocked to see Seung-gi. The projection on the wall showed images of Jeong-in, leaving her stunned. Regaining her composure, Jeong-in confronted Seung-gi with a soul-searching question. Calm and collected, Seung-gi expressed his feelings for Jeong-in, revealing that he truly cared for her. He had planned this confession because he couldn't get Jeong-in out of his mind after their last encounter. Listening to Seung-gi's confession, and seeing the sand art he made for her, Jeong-in was deeply moved, her eyes welling up with tears. That evening, when Do-hyeon came home, he heard Jeong-in say not to turn on the lights, but he did anyway. Do-hyeon, missing Jeong-in after a few days apart, tried to reconnect. However, Jeong-in, upon seeing him, said she was tired and wanted to sleep. Do-hyeon asked what was wrong, but Jeong-in didn't want him to ask and said she couldn't explain. Her mind was in chaos. She didn't know how to choose between Do-hyeon and Seung-gi, who seemed to understand her so well. But then Do-hyeon said something
나도 모르겠어.
그 자식 때문이야?
that made Jeong-in sit up in surprise. She asked how he knew. Did a colleague tell him? She then said I'm sorry to Do-hyeon, but Do-hyeon's response shattered her. It turned out this was all part of his plan. Seung-gi was the same with every woman. It was Do-hyeon who had asked Seung-gi to seduce Jeong-in. Do-hyeon was so desperate to escape Jeong-in's nagging that he arranged the whole thing, even paying Seung-gi a high price after multiple requests. However, Do-hyeon realized his mistake. Being alone at home, he felt the loneliness and understood that Jeong-in's nagging came from a place of care and companionship. Do-hyeon asked Seung-gi to stop the seduction, but Seung-gi had genuinely fallen for Jeong-in and refused to stop. Even without payment, this revelation left Jeong-in in shock, torn between the genuine feelings Seung-gi had developed for her and the manipulation by Do-hyeon. Regretful, Do-hyeon even considered running over Seung-gi. Discovering everything, Jeong-in cried. She cried because she had maintained her dignity, cried because her beloved husband despised her, cried for her lost youth, and cried for her helpless life. Despite Do-hyeon's pleas, he couldn't convince Jeong-in to stay. She decided to divorce him. When Jeong-in was moving out, the newspaper delivery man tossed another newspaper into the yard. This time, it was Do-hyeon who argued with the delivery man. Seeing Do-hyeon in her old role, Jeong-in decided to stay one last night. However, Do-hyeon missed his chance, and in the morning, Jeong-in was gone. They had agreed on a time to meet at the divorce office. After waiting a long time and reaching lunchtime, Do-hyeon suggested they have a farewell meal. While ordering, Do-hyeon got into an argument with the waiter. Jeong-in told him he shouldn't act that way. Listening to her nagging, Do-hyeon laughed. He laughed at becoming what he hated, at hearing those familiar words, at his foolish thoughts, and at how he had ruined a beautiful family with his own hands. Through all this, Do-hyeon finally understood Jeong-in's pain. Nagging isn't a personality trait, it's the pressure of life, a sign of inner loneliness, an expression of love. Everyone longs for a beautiful life, but reality often disappoints. Suddenly, Jeong-in saw a balloon drifting outside again, heard the sound of breaking dishes, and felt the vibration of the phone. Terrified, she hid under the table once more. Do-hyeon reassured her that there was no earthquake. At that moment, Do-hyeon remembered their first meeting and repeated his words to her.
이런 미인을 만나게 돼서 정말 영광입니다. 저기 제가 밥 사줄게요.
In the end, the two didn't go through with the divorce. They returned to their cozy home. Thus, the story ends. If you're going through a similar situation, take a moment to reflect. Remember how it all started and cherish those memories.